Hi, welcome to BRAMstrology, where you are now taking steps to becoming your rare, authentically mastered self using the language of the stars. My name is Brandon, and today I'm going to be diving deep into the astrological analysis of Mr. Michael Cimino. So a couple things I want to get out of the way before I get into his chart is, first of all, if you're new to astrology, new to this channel, hi, hello, welcome. I'm sure you know how the YouTube algorithm works, so you know I'm probably going to say things along the lines of, hey, subscribe, like, comment, share, all those things. You know how social media works. I don't have to get into that. We're going to skip all that. We're just going to go right to the other stuff. The other thing I want to add to, in the description box below, I have linked all of Michael's socials as well as my own socials, as well as timestamps for all the things I'll be mentioning within the course of this video. So feel free to look down there, and also down there I have all links to my website and everything that I'm doing if you guys are interested in an astrological analysis with yours truly. So that's the little intro there. So without being any more, repetitive in this intro, let's just get right into it. Okay, so before I get into his chart, a couple things I want to say. So, as it relates to Michael, I had seen him on Love Victor. If you haven't seen it, go on Netflix, on Hulu, all the different streaming platforms has it, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure it's on Hulu. I don't remember where it was on. It was somewhere on, interwebs. You can look it up. Google's a thing. Anywho, so I saw him on that, and I really resonated with him, and I just really felt his presence on screen, on camera, and I really felt a resonance with him, right? And at the time, I remember I looked at his chart, and I was interested in it, and I was like, okay, this is interesting, and recently, he's kind of been popping back up in my own sort of energy, and I felt the need that I needed to kind of talk about it, and go and do a deep dive in this way. So, I did, and when I looked up his chart the first time, there was no birth time, and there still isn't a birth time. So with that, there is a little bit of complexity that does happen. Doesn't mean that there can't be a super accurate reading. It just won't be as super accurate as it would be if there was a birth time. I can still read the chart. I'm still going to have plenty to talk about. Trust me, it's me. I have plenty of stuff to say. As I'm sure you could see with the amount of time is on this video. So just get that out of the way. With that being said, yeah, so I was watching this video, watching him on Love Victor, and then found out he does music, does all this stuff, and I really resonated with him, and I wanted to do a full reading. So this is my full reading of Mr. Cimino. So Michael Cimino was born on November 10th of 1999. So he, at the time I'm currently recording this on October 23rd, so it is Scorpio season, so he'll be turning 22 in a couple weeks or so from the time of recording this video. I don't know when this video is going to get out, but hopefully I get it out by his birthday. It'd be a great birthday present for him. But anywho, he was born November 12th, 1999 in Las Vegas. As I said, I don't have a birth time on the internet, so I couldn't find it. I did some scouring, couldn't really figure it out. I also don't want to do too much digging for birth certificates and all those sorts of things, because I feel like that's just not right. So I'm just working with what I've got, So regardless of that, I still have a lot to talk about, like I said. Like I said, this is also going to be broken into portions, so you can look down in the description box below to see all the things that I speak about in this video. If there's anything that you have that's the exact same as Michael, I would recommend looking at those things too. So look down there, see what I got to talk about, and kind of skip through whatever you want to listen to. Or if you're really, really committed, listen to the whole thing. That'd be a great thing. Helps my watch time. Yeah, YouTube. Anywho, let's just pull up his chart. Let's just get right into it. All right, so let's pull up his chart here right now. There you go. So this is his chart. So we don't have a rising sign, as I said, but I do have his sun sign. So I'm going to go in planetary order. So we have his sun in Scorpio, we have his moon in Sagittarius, his Mercury is retrograde in Scorpio, his Venus is in Libra, his Mars is in Capricorn, his Jupiter is in Aries, his Saturn is in Taurus, his Uranus and Neptune are both in Aquarius, and then his Pluto is in Sagittarius along with his Chiron. And then obviously, but I guess it is obvious to astrologers, but his North Node is in Leo. So, and we're going to be talking about most of those things throughout the course of this video. But that was just kind of just the breakdown of the planetary bodies that he has. You can see those listed here as well. And so we're just going to kind of dive in. So we're going to go in kind of planetary order for the most part. You would think I would go right into the Scorpio sun, but I'm not really going to get into that because I think that that is not entirely worth noting. I'll briefly talk about it here for a second. But essentially the Scorpio sun is, I mean, I have a Scorpio sun too, so I know how it works. I live with it, you know, but there is this like disempowerment energy. There is this very empowered energy, very sexual energy as well, very creative energy that comes with being a Scorpio. And I think it's really interesting that the character that he portrayed in Love Victor has a very empowering sexuality sort of theme to it, and very much an identity around focused around sexuality, which I think is very Scorpionic and Scorpio sun in that way. But I'll talk about the Scorpio sun later if it is relevant, but I didn't put it in my notes of like relevant importance just because there was so much more to talk about besides him being the Scorpio sun. But that was just that part. So let's move on, and we're going to talk about his moon in Sagittarius. Okay, so we have Mr. Cimino has his moon in Sagittarius at 17 degrees. This moon in Sagittarius placement, anyone that has a moon in Sag is obviously very optimistic, very positive. The way I view Sagittarius placements overall have to do with experience points. These are people that whatever planetary body is related to Sagittarius, it wants to experience a lot of things. It wants to gain experience points as it relates to that planet. So with the moon in Sagittarius, there is this emotional need for exploration, this need to experience like the full range of emotions and the full range of things that make this person feel alive. So Sagittarius moon people are going to be much more explorative, much more open to new experiences, much more optimistic. Their mother may have been a sort of more like guru, a sort of a teacher for them, someone that traveled with them. With the moon in Sag, it can potentially show a mother that, although the mother was extremely, insightful and knowledgeable and helpful for the native to like really believe in themselves, and instilled a lot of faith in that, there could be, because Sagittarius is representative of like long distance travel in that way, there could be a mother that might not entirely be super present for the native, which is Michael in this example, only because there's a constant travel, constant need that this mother figure or maternal figures in general have had. Granted, I'm pretty sure that his moon with Sagittarius and with Pluto, which we're going to talk about next, is kind of a lot of the reason why there might be some more emotional distance involved with this relationship with the mother. However, with the moon Pluto, or the moon in Sagittarius in general, it is a pretty positive placement to have overall with the native. Granted, there's so many different ways that a moon in Sagittarius placement can be specifically understood. I have a whole moon in the sign series, so feel free to check that out. You can look up there to see more specifically on how I talk about the moon in Sagittarius. But as an overall placement, it is pretty positive for the native. There is a little bit more that we're going to get into as we talk about this progressively in the chart, especially as it relates to Pluto and Chiron and things of that nature. But as for the moon in Sagittarius, overall, I feel that the mother is definitely a very positive impact, very influential on the native, and really has instilled some very positive, uplifting values, at least just specifically as a moon in Sagittarius person. So that's the moon in Sagittarius. We're going to move on to the moon conjunct Pluto. All right, so Mr. Cimino has his moon conjunct Pluto. So I just spoke about the previous portion, how he has his moon in Sagittarius, which is a very jovial, very fun, very exact, like very just experience-based emotional sign, or emotionally experience-based sign. However, with Pluto involved, this is considered what's called a Hades moon. So what that means is there is a sort of plutonic destructive sort of crisis energy involved with the emotionality of the native. So there's going to be a need to alchemize and really, really dig deep into the feelings, dig deep into everything, and kind of bring it out in a stronger way, similar to that of a phoenix, right? So Moon Pluto is not the easiest aspect to have. I also have Moon Pluto aspect. Don't have the conjunction, but I do have it, and so it is something that is really, really pivotal for the native. There's a really good book that I would highly recommend. I'm going to put up on the screen right now. It's called The Hades Moon. It is a great book specifically on anyone that has a Moon Pluto conjunction or Moon Pluto anything, because it explains specifically more so of the relationship with the mother, as well as just kind of how you know, the native is going to have to deal with their emotionality and the depth of their emotions. So with the Moon Pluto, it is an extremely powerful placement. So Moon Pluto conjunction is even more powerful than, you know, a moon trine or a moon square, because a moon conjunction means those two energies are merging together and they're becoming one in a sense. And so this makes his emotional depth even deeper, even more expansive. And with the Moon Pluto being in Sag, there is this need for him to want to break free from the traditional norms, the traditional way of schooling, the traditional way of learning. And this combination, and this is also in reference to the Moon Chiron, which we'll get on next, is this breaking free from what was taught to you and the traditional schooling in that sense, and really honestly going through it emotionally, and emotionally experiencing like through pain, through transformation, right? And learning through that, learning through difficult times, learning through difficult sort of experiences. And as this relates to Michael, his moon is not exactly, but it's pretty closely conjunct to his Pluto, which means there is that overlay of the emotions and an empowerment aspect. So there definitely is something going on for him in relation to women or maternal energy with that, because the Moon Pluto typically has very, very powerful, influential women around them, and very, very powerful just people influencing their emotions. So Moon Pluto too is going to have a time in their life. I don't think he's had it yet. He may have with the South Node eclipse that just happened. Well, not just happened, but happened earlier this year in end of May or early June in Sagittarius. So I would think that he probably had some emotional deep thing going on that he had to kind of go through and face a little bit more. It's gonna be more so. I'll talk about this more in like the predictive part, which I'll talk about later. But the Moon Pluto has to really use their emotional intensity for good. Because whenever Pluto is involved with anything, and this is a Scorpionic just thing to learn, and any Scorpio suns, which he is, and you know, I am as well. Scorpios have to learn, and any Pluto placements have to learn the power that planet has and the power that the planets connected to that have. So, for example, we're going to talk about this with his Mercury and Scorpio too. But the Moon Pluto, it requires you to have intense emotional maturity and emotional awareness, not just of yourself but of others, because you're going to have emotional depth and awareness of others to the point that you can cause a lot of emotional pain. And you've probably caused a lot of emotional pain or felt a lot of emotional pain, more so with the conjunction. I would assume it was felt also with Chiron there, and also assume that it was felt and experienced by the native, and then they don't want to experience any pain to anyone else, so they then make sure that they're not inflicting any pain. But the thing with Pluto placements and Scorpio placements, you have to recognize how much pain you can actually do, and unfortunately sometimes that happens with you on either end. You're either gonna do it to someone else and hurt them very, very deeply on an emotional level, or you're going to have it done to you, which either way, it's very, very traumatic. Typically it happens to you and then you don't want to do it to other people, but sometimes it can be like an explosive energy that kind of just hurts people, and you go on this rampage and don't realize you hurt people. So that's very, very, sorry, it's a little bit dark, but it's Pluto energy. But yeah, the moon Pluto does have a very transformative relationship with the mother. There might have been some power struggles with the mom too, or just maternal figures in general, and power struggles within himself to be able to emotionally nurture himself in a way that he feels is complete. Because Moon Pluto individuals typically don't feel complete emotionally, because there's this kind of emotional black hole that they fall into essentially, because it's an abyss that they feel like they can never be fully healed. But in time, Mr. Michael, it will be better. Promise you that. So that's the Moon Pluto. Let's move on to the Moon Chiron, and then yeah, we'll get off the Moon for a second. So let's on to Move Chiron. Move on to Moon Chiron. Can't talk. All right, so we have Moon Chiron. It's interesting because this is now the second celebrity that I've at least recently read that has a Moon Chiron conjunction. The other one I read was Tori Kelly, so the link to hers is up here, down there, whatever. I did a video on that too, so I talked about Moon Chiron pretty extensively in her chart because it was one of the biggest focuses in my opinion for her. So the Moon Chiron, Chiron is the wounded healer. It's the wound that you keep revisiting, and eventually you become so good at that area that you end up teaching people or helping people within whatever that Chiron may be. So Chiron is a people like definitely like just put down Chiron a lot, which is really ironic because it's Chiron. But people typically focus on the wound part and not the healer part, and I think it's really important to recognize both. With Chiron in a fire sign, with Chiron being in Sagittarius, there is a sense of action needing to be involved with this. Chiron in Sag is a placement that there is a wounding of the intellectual mind. There's a wounding of the beliefs, right? So there may have been some sort of belief instilled into the native at a young age that just didn't quite fit right? Or it didn't quite feel right, and they just kept having to revisit it and kept having to like doubt, and a lot of self-doubt of their beliefs, self-doubt of, you know, their sort of like purpose, essentially, their sort of like way of life, their direction, and their optimism, right? So Chiron and Sag can definitely be a very negatively, or it can be a pretty negative, pessimistic sort of placement, just because it might not see hope in things, and it might have a very large, actually more than likely has a very large distrust of religion, which is then why it's difficult for them to establish their own sense of beliefs, because they don't trust anything outside of themselves, so they keep going within themselves to be like, what am I, who am I, what do I believe, what is out there, what is, you know, all those sorts of things. And Chiron and Sag has a natural distrust of the religious system and their own beliefs and the beliefs they were fed, and then also, of course, schooling and learning. And so they learn very differently. They think that they definitely need to embrace spirituality or embrace religion in a different way, and they're going to constantly be going through a sense of revisiting to their spiritual wounds or their sort of sense of spirituality. Chiron and Sag is a very, very spiritual placement, and the Chiron and Sag, Pluto and Sag generation, y'all are just insane, and I am so excited to see what happens when we really get into you guys really stepping out here, which won't be for like a couple years, but I'm really excited about that. But as it relates to the moon in conjunction with Chiron, there is this healing aspect, emotional healing aspect. So whenever you have a planet in connection with Chiron, it shows that utilizing that planet will heal you further. And when it comes to the moon, Chiron, granted it's not a super tight conjunction, it's conjunction by sign. Chiron's at 5 degrees, the moon's at 17. Chiron's more closely conjunct to Mercury, which is what I'll talk about next. But when it comes to the moon, Chiron being connected, there is this this sense of emotional healing that has to keep being revisited. And the moon is like the most personal planet to you. So if that's in connection with Chiron, which like I said about Tori Kelly, it was one of the biggest aspects of her chart. This is not as like notable. I mean, it is a part of the whole system. But with this, it's a very painful sort of emotional life that needs to be revisited, needs to be healed. But through being able to do that, Michael will be able to really establish a sense of belief, a sense of faith, not just in himself, but in the world at large, and be able to teach that. And I think with this moon Chiron Pluto conjunction, and then also Mercury and Scorpio, what I'm getting is that he's going to be going through like just as it relates to this, there's a lot of like emotional healing that he's going to go through, emotional transformations, a lot of deep like soul searching essentially for some sort of belief, and then he's going to be able to teach that to others. He's going to be able to lead people and kind of be that that sort of preacher essentially that, you know, is associated with Sagittarius. I'm going to talk more about that when we get further into the video, but for the most part, this is a very karmic healing planet. So Chiron, in this interesting stellium he has up here, is definitely hinting at a really deep healing that he's going to be doing, that he's going to be passing on and teaching others. And he's going to teach people how to relate, and how to relate to spirituality, relate to religion, relate to their own beliefs, and find faith in the bigger picture of things. So that's related at least to the moon Chiron. So let's move on to Mercury retrograde in Scorpio. Alright, so we're going to talk about his Mercury retrograde in Scorpio. His Mercury is at 29 degrees of Scorpio, which means that it like retrograded from Sagittarius into Scorpio, which is very interesting to be born under that sort of thing. Being born under a Mercury retrograde is a little bit more common than any other retrogrades, because Mercury retrograde happens about 3 times a year. It's pretty common to be born under those. As it relates to Mercury retrograde, there is a whole thing about how Mercury retrogrades are different than regular direct planets. And Mercury retrograde is a planet of, or a planetary combination that hints at mental sort of delay, if that makes any sense. I don't like saying delay when it comes to retrograde planets, but it's a sense of revisiting, and the things that are for you are for you. The things that resonate with retrograde people and retrograde planets penetrate, and when they penetrate, they know that that's for them. So when someone gets something and understands something as a Mercury retrograde planet, that is what needs to get through to them. That is what they need to understand. So retrogrades, the way I can kind of look at it, and the way I've been told, I don't have any retrograde planets, but I've experienced it, is it's kind of like a blocking of stuff, a shielding, if you will. So essentially, there's things that will come to you within your awareness as a Mercury retrograde person, and nothing will really click all the time, right? But the things that do click are the things that are supposed to click. So there's like the shield, and whatever does penetrate it, at least in the mental capacity, that's what needs to be integrated. That's why it's like a slower sort of process with Mercury retrograde people. So as it relates to that, I mean, that in itself is a whole topic that many astrologers talk about, Mercury retrograde. But what I'm really interested in is the fact that it's in Scorpio and also at 29 degrees. So, and also because it just came out of Sagittarius. So it's really interesting, because if he were born maybe, I don't even know, like a couple days, maybe even a day before when he was born, he would have his Mercury in Sag, which is interesting because that would make his Sagittarius stellium even more Sagittarius-like. But this is interesting because this his Mercury is what actually I keep getting drawn back to, interestingly enough, because it's in his own sign of Scorpio, but it's at the 29th degree, which is extremely powerful. And it wants to see the depth of things. Mercury Scorpio, like I said in the Moon Pluto portion, it has to understand its power. And Mercury Scorpio or Mercury Pluto, they know what power is in their words. And Mercury Scorpio, Mercury Pluto people, their words will carry. They really, really will. And they will have a very, very powerful voice. Mercury Pluto is pretty common for people that have that are in entertainment and that are in the entertainment industry, just because Mercury Pluto by aspect, typically it makes your voice even more profound and deeper, and the things that you say, the things that you communicate get to people's depths and hit people in their soul, you know? That's just Plutonic energy. Plutonic energy wants to get to the depth of things and really bring it out. And with it being Mercury as planet of communication, he definitely at some point had realized that he was more aware of the darker parts of people's lives, or the pain points, right? The pain points in people's energy. I mean, he's already a Scorpio sun, so that's already coming, like, that's already natural for him. But the Mercury there is like, you have a lot of power in your words. Mercury Scorpio, for any of you that have Mercury in Scorpio, it's very important to not utilize the manipulative energy to your own advantage and use it to transform the people that you're around, transform the conversations. Use the power that you have within your communication, within your mind, to really catalyze and really create a new sort of awareness in a person, because you have a depth of awareness when it comes to communication with the Mercury Scorpio. Also, psychology would be just a whole great field for him to go into, even if I don't know if he plans on doing that ever of that. I don't know him personally at any level like that, but that's a really good thought. Mercury is retrograde, so there might have been some sort of, I feel like there was like gaslighting in his house, or gaslighting within like something, because the Mercury Scorpio retrograde is like that's like a darkness that you see in others, but then you don't see it. It's like a really foggy thing. It's really, really interesting, and I'm really intrigued as to how his personal experience with communication and words, as it relates to his family, as it relates to healing, as it relates to people telling him what to do, coming in. Because I think the thing with this too is with Mercury Scorpio retrograde, it's like, I feel like there's a lot of people that tell him what he's worth, tell him what to do, overpower him in that way. Mercury Scorpio is typically, so has people that they communicate, and has people that they communicate with around them that are very influential, very powerful. And with him having retrograde for that, he might be able to absorb all of that awareness and all of that power around him communicatively, by just listening and just being very aware of all the undercurrents, because that's what he does, but then being able to use it when he needs to, and when it is appropriate, and when it is going to help him or help heal the people. So that's at least the Mercury retrograde in Scorpio. We're going to move on to Mercury conjunct Chiron. Okay, so Mercury conjunct Chiron. So as I said in the Moon Chiron portion, any planet that is closely connected to Chiron or makes an aspect to Chiron is going to be a part of your healing journey. It is going to be what you are going to need to work with planetarily to really heal yourself and heal others. And whenever you tap into that planetary energy, you are going to be wounded, but also eventually become a healer in that energy. So people that have Mercury Chiron energy, your communication is a means for healing. And when you speak things out and you speak up about what you've been through, or about the pains of others, or whatever, you naturally heal yourself and others around you. Because Mercury Chiron, it has this wounded energy around its own ability to speak, and it's no coincidence he has Mercury Chiron and Mercury retrograde. So this boy has some interesting self-doubt in his own mind of his own ability to speak and his own ability to communicate philosophically, or communicate in a way that is perceived as intelligent, because I think he has like I said, just a self-doubt of his own intelligence, his own ability. But it's part of what he is here to learn, is to how to teach people how to communicate, how to speak better, how to be better within their mind, and how to use their mind to get to the depth of who they are in a way that will create more awareness, more healing for them. Mercury Chiron is also really, really good for music. I know he does do music. Link to that down below in the description. But Mercury Chiron is really, really good for music, because it is just a natural sort of angelic healing energy. There is some, like I said, I don't know if this would be something that happened now, like recently, but I doubt it. But it's like this kind of like doubting of his own speaking ability and his own ability to project his voice, in a sense. And it's funny because with the Mercury Scorpio, that is either on either end of empowerment. So it's either going to be on a very low end of empowerment, where it's like being muted and being like shut up, which is probably what happened way back there in his history. But then eventually it goes to the other end of empowerment, which is when he found his voice, and when he spoke up, and when he decided to pursue whatever, I don't know his entire life story, obviously, but when he decided to pursue really speaking more publicly, or pursuing acting, singing, those sorts of things, because that is what allows him to feel empowered about what he's gone through, and allows him to find a way almost to communicate the darker parts about human nature, and kind of work through his stuff mentally by communicating about it. Because there's like method acting is a whole thing. I don't know if I'm using that term correctly or not, but essentially there's a way of you can act through a trauma that you've been through, or a difficulty that you've been through in life, and you can then kind of heal that trauma by mentally replaying it within your head, or going through the acting of that process and realizing that you can survive that and you can kind of get through that. It is difficult because it is very much like a retriggering thing, but I think a lot of actors and the whole like industry is very interesting in that way, because I find that a lot of people that are in the industry have characters they portray that are very similar to their chart, which is really, really interesting. And I'll talk more about that when I do Grant Gustin's reading. But it's very, very interesting because there's a lot of energy around his character that kind of just comes out with this. But yeah, the Mercury Chiron, the more he goes through communicating and healing, which I don't know if that's going to happen right now. I mean, there is going to be some stuff coming up for him pretty soon in the predictive work I'm going to be doing, so that's in the later portion of this video, because there's some stuff coming up pretty soon for him with that. But honestly, I think there's going to be just a need to communicate more clearly, and just not doubt the self. But yeah, the Mercury Chiron is a powerful voice, but they need to get out of their own way and get out of their own head and know that their words are valuable and their words are worth teaching to people, which he has a lot of teaching energy with this Sagittarius energy. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of spirituality involved with his beliefs that needs to be more integrated into who he is and how he projects himself and how he presents himself. But that's for a later conversation. So let's move on to his Venus. So his Venus trine Neptune. All right, so we have his Venus trine Neptune. So this is actually his tightest aspect in his chart, which, for those of you that don't know what a tightest aspect is, essentially it is pretty easy to infer, but it is when the two planetary bodies are at their like tightest orb, which means that they are the ones that are kind of interacting the most at their peak, essentially. So the Venus trine, Venus is at 1 degree 51 minutes of Libra, and Neptune is at 1 degree 45 minutes of is it 45 or 48 minutes of Neptune? But that is freakishly close, and that is his tightest aspect, which means essentially that is going to be the one that is really going to be kind of playing pretty heavily into his character, into his chart, into his life. And so Venus Neptune, this is going to be a little bit of a doozy to talk about this one, because Neptune energy is elusive. It's an energy that doesn't really like to be seen. It doesn't really like to be sort of expressed. So with Neptune energy, Neptune represents art. Neptune represents the energy you can't see, but you can feel. So it has to do with like vibes. It has to do with music. It has to do with altered states of consciousness, substances, anything that gets you outside of your body and gets you into a different realm, or exists in a different realm. So like mediumship, spirituality, dreams, mental illness, mental health, incarceration, are all like Neptunian things. Pisces, 12th house, Neptunian things. And so he has this Neptune in the sign of Capricorn, in the sign of Aquarius, which is a generational planet. And because I talk about this in almost all of my videos, but any person that has a pretty tightly aspected personal planet to a generational planet, it shows that that person is going to impact that generation a little bit more personally, right? Wow, look at that. So the personal planet tight aspect to the generational planet means that there is going to be some sort of things that are going to be done by the native that are going to continually bring up the lesson of that generational planet. So as it relates to this aspect, Neptune is in Aquarius, which Neptune Aquarius is a very art of the collective energy. It's very in tune with the unconscious of the collective. It's very in tune with collective trends. Neptune Aquarius energy is this kind of like not really knowing what group you belong to, not really knowing the boundaries socially. Neptune Aquarius energy generation is typically associated with the Gen Z generation, the people that pretty much grew up with phones and grew up with this being their medium for communicating and all those sorts of things. And there was a lot of kind of confusion as to what socially is acceptable and what socially exists, because they were kind of at that in-between of where we're at now, where essentially we're in a very Aquarian age. We're in it, but we're not like all the way in it. But we're pretty deep in it. So essentially, now we're reaching this point where technology has kind of become the way that we communicate. And when the Neptune Aquarius energy, where the Neptune Aquarius people and natives were born in that time where it's kind of like, oh, like, what is social media? What is this? And there was this blurring of the collective of where they belonged, because they could, they could go out and they could be at school in that way, but then they would also go home and go to their computer or go whatever technology that they may have, go to that, and that may make them feel a sense of community that way. So there's this like blurring of the lines in societal, sort of societal boundaries and social boundaries. So with that, with the Neptune there, that also is artistic energy in relation to the collective. There is a very, very prominent musical energy with this, especially because it's Venus too. Venus is connecting to it, because Venus is the lower octave of Neptune. So Venus connects to Neptune by a trine, and it's the tightest aspect of this man's chart. He is a extremely artistic person, extremely spiritual person. This energy is so like the rose-colored glasses, the always seeing the best in people, the always loving people, the values that he holds, and the things that the way he presents himself is very in line with the collective sort of unconscious and the collective sort of artistic sort of wants and needs. And so this is a very idealistic energy. So he's very, like I said, sees the positives in people. Might be, if not more than likely, kind of some sort of delusion in a sense. This energy, and that doesn't mean that it's entirely bad. I mean, delusions can get bad, of course, but with the Venus-Neptune being the most prominent and tightest aspect in his chart, this is going to be a consistent theme for him, especially in boundaries and relationships, boundaries in who his friends are versus who he wants in his inner circle, because this energy almost has like a Venus-Libra's great. Venus-Libra's phenomenal. It's an energy that it's at home. Venus is at home in Libra, so it loves that energy. It brings in some really great relationships, really wanting to see the best of both sides. Like, it's very cordial, very fair. And Neptune trining that is great. It makes, this person see the best in on both sides of things, and is very balanced, is very helpful in relationships. However, there is some sense of unclear boundaries into who the native has in their life, and why that person's there. So this could be very difficult for him to understand exactly why he's with the people he's with, or why he's dating someone, or if he's in a relationship, those sorts of things, because it might be, there's a lot of unclear boundaries with this aspect. Venus Neptune, even by the trine, it's still unclear as to what the native's feeling, what the native wants. So this energy, seeing as this is his, and it's also making a aspect to Mercury too, and to Chiron. Yeah, this man has some like relational karma. like big relational karma. And Venus Neptune being the most prominent aspect and being one of the biggest aspects in his chart. Yeah, Saturn's in Taurus too. Okay, we're getting deeper into his chart as this progresses, so it's gonna be fun. So yeah, this is an energy of unclear boundaries, but this is also too, like, the thing about Venus Neptune, it's not like Venus Saturn, which he technically does have Venus Saturn because he has Saturn in Taurus, but it's about having some sort of faith in why you're attracting what you're attracting in your life, why you're attracted to who you're attracted to in this life, right? This is a very healing energy for him and his relationships, but also for all the relationships. And I think that's really funny because that's another indicator of what I would see in someone that is on the big screen in that way. But the thing is, with Neptune Venus, there is a energy of being projected on a lot, like a lot. And it's funny because Neptune represents media and represents screens and smoke screens in that way. So there's a lot of projection going on with him. So there might be some difficulties in him being able to understand exactly who he is, or even who he is separate of the character he plays on screen, or who he is separate of the relationships that he's in, or separate of his friends in that way. Because Neptune Aquarius gets really involved with their friends and gets really in that way where there might be some sort of like blurred lines in what is right, what's wrong. And with Saturn currently being in Aquarius at the time of recording this, there's going to be some boundaries that are going to be erected throughout the course of this next 1.5-year transit that's going to really push that into some sort of effect. But yeah, there is a need to like have a sense of stability in his boundaries and in what he's valued for. And it's interesting because that's kind of, he's very Venusian in that way. And so this energy really needs him to have clear boundaries and have a faith in, it's weird because it's like Venus Neptune is like, have faith in why you're in the life you're doing and why you're attracting what you're attracting and the values that you have. But then Venus Saturn, which is the Saturn in Taurus that he has, is like, hey, be clear on what you want out of this life. Be clear on what you value. Be clear on your worth. And it's funny because this Venus Neptune is almost like everyone thinks he's, and I'm not saying he's not, but everyone, you know, perceives him based off the media, based off these things as very, very large and very, very phenomenal. And I think it's difficult for him because there might be some sort of sense of imposter syndrome or some sort of sense of not feeling that he's worthy of the limelight he's in, or not feeling that he's capable of maintaining that in a sense. And that's a little bit more on the deeper end. Just what I'm getting intuitively at this point. But so yeah, there is that need to have some sense of boundaries with him. And since he hasn't technically hit like his official like Saturn square yet, which we'll talk about in the predictive part, I think things are going to get a little bit more clear for him and everyone that has Saturn in Taurus over the next 1.5 years when Saturn goes through, when Saturn finishes its transit through Aquarius. But we'll get into that, like I said, in a minute. But overall, Venus Neptune, just have clear boundaries. Just be clear. Just get out of your head, get out of your imagination, get out of your feelings, and try and be clear about what you want. The thing is too with this, he's already kind of doing that with the music part. So just be really Venus Neptune, if they can channel their stuff into music or into something artistic or into something Neptunian, they can really honestly create beautiful, beautiful art with that energy. So that's the Venus Neptune. We're going to move on to the Mars and Capricorn squaring his Jupiter in Aries. All right, so we have his Mars and Capricorn squaring his Jupiter in Aries. So this is a very different energy from what I was just talking about. What I was previously talking about was Venus and Neptune, which is very not Mars and Jupiter. Let's just put it out that way. Venus Neptune is very blurry, very confusing, very sort of idealistic. Mars Jupiter is very go, 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 go. Go further, go faster, go harder. That whole song, you know. And Mars Jupiter is like, how much can I do? How much can I get done? Right? And it's funny because his Mars is in the sign of Capricorn, which is exalted. It's like the best it can possibly be. And then Jupiter is in the sign of Aries, which is even more accentuating this like go, see how much I can do. What are the limits I can push? What can I get? What can I, who can I be? Jupiter in Aries is a really great energy for self-accomplishment, self-assertion, and going after what you want, and self-belief, right? There's a really good, really strong sense of self-belief that he does have. It is interesting because both his Jupiter and Saturn are retrograde as well, so that does indicate some of a little bit of a delay in the ability to believe in the self all the time. But Jupiter in Aries is still going to make the native believe in themselves. It's just going to keep happening. Like they're going to eventually believe in their own self-worth and their own ability to act. And he has a Mars in Capricorn, so this man is going to be doing great things, and I have no doubt that he's very business oriented with the Mars Capricorn, so I am not surprised that he rose to the level that he's risen to. But with that Jupiter retrograde, just like I said before in the Mercury retrograde, the things that come to him in regards to beliefs and spirituality are meant to come to him. It's not something that he can just go out and attain and kind of pick up as quickly. It's a little bit of a delay within that, but there is a strong sense of self-belief. There's still this like running theme of doubt and self-worth doubt in that sense too. That's more Saturn and Taurus, but there is this like overarching theme with him of self-belief, self-worth, self-value that keeps coming up. But with the Mars square Jupiter, he needs to chill. I mean, not chill, but like if you have Mars square Jupiter, and with his Jupiter in Aries, Mars in Capricorn, this man just wants to do everything, which is great. It's great. It's phenomenal. It's extremely in line with his chart. It needs to be done. But I think it's a matter of speaking and feeling that is more prominent and more important within his growth versus just doing to gain more recognition and more status and more power, not power, but more authority, more success, more whatever it may be, because this comes from an energy of like I don't know what happened with it. Yeah, he got an interesting family life. Let's just put that out there. It's a very interesting family life, especially the father, because the father's pretty heavily involved with this chart here. Yeah, he's got an interesting. Yeah, I don't know what his relationship is with father figures. Yeah. Okay. Anywho, I'm just doing it in my head, but essentially, this Jupiter Mars is gonna give him a lot of success in anything he does, right? Anything he does, action he takes, easy, right? As long as it's in alignment with, career advancement and something he believes that he can do. Because if he doesn't believe he can do it, he's not gonna be able to do it. Or if he might push a lot further, because, he does have the Mars in Cap, so he's gonna probably push and know that he will eventually reach that state and that level of attainment. But there's a delay. There's a delay in this sort of self-belief in that way. But the difference with this is like there's this push and pull with him doing things and taking action, which is very easy for him, and something that is really important for him. He's supposed to take big actions and take a lot of action in this life, but it's a matter of knowing when enough's enough and when enough action has been taken and when he can start speaking up about his value and his worth. And the thing is too, I think there's an energy with this where he's very mature for his age. And I think he may have amassed a lot more knowledge than he's willing to share and willing to open up about. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything necessarily negative. It's just something that isn't really, he doesn't feel that he's at a level that he can communicate with those people or openly with people that are more mature than him or, double his age, whatever it may be, that have it more together in that way. So the Mars and Jupiter connection is kind of like him trying to do more things so that he can then speak openly about his pain, about his feelings, get back to this like moon Sag, moon Pluto, moon Chiron, Mercury Scorpio up there at the top. It's like really going into that and really saying you don't have to keep doing more as long as you know and you have an outlet for your emotions and outlet for your words. Because you're going to be doing a lot. This Mars-Jupiter combination, you're doing a lot, honestly. So there is a lot of stuff going on there. So that's at least the Mars square Jupiter. I'm going to talk really briefly, maybe about 2 minutes, on like the Jupiter-Neptune square that he has as well. So we'll talk about Jupiter-Neptune square real quick. Okay, so Mr. Cimino has his Jupiter in Aries, his Neptune in Aquarius. So yeah, there's this energy with, so Jupiter expands what it touches, Jupiter makes it bigger, Jupiter overindulges sometimes, Jupiter needs a sense of faith, and Jupiter in connection with Neptune, especially by a square, is going to exacerbate that creativity. It's gonna make the creativity huge, right? It's gonna make the spirituality, the spiritual knowledge of the native immense. Their creative outlet is gonna be immense. Their ability to create something that is vibey, and, you know, their ability to feel vibes in like an intuitive way is very natural for them. So the Jupiter-Neptune square, however, is going to, it brings me back to what I said about the Venus-Neptune trine, which is almost like there's a lot of unclear values, unclear feelings, unclear things in his life. And Jupiter-Neptune, Jupiter being the sign of Mars, it's really saying to me that there's a need to have a sense of faith with what he's doing in the long term, and not overdo it, and also not delusion yourself. This is an aspect that I would avoid some sort of or any sort of connection with any mind-altering drugs. It can definitely help him for sure, but it's almost like an overdoing of an action. Jupiter, Aries, Neptune, and Aquarius, overdoing something to fit in with the group, or overdoing something because everybody else is doing it and it's trendy, or overdoing something because you feel like it's just a part of a collective experience, right? That's kind of the energy I'm getting with that, is the Jupiter-Neptune square. And it's a generational kind of combination, but it is something that it's going to exacerbate that connection to spirituality, to religion, to faith. So Sagittarius has to do with actually experiencing and kind of like following your faith mentally, but Neptune and Pisces energy has to do with actually living your faith. So, and living it in your daily life and actually embodying that faith, and using it and listening to that and following your higher intuition, not necessarily understanding why you're doing it, but following it. And that's really what he needs to do throughout this process, because there's a lot of energy with that. So that's the Jupiter-Neptune square. We're going to move on to talk about the T-square he has in the chart with the Sun, Uranus, and Saturn. All right, so we're going to talk about this man's beautiful T-square, which is with the Sun, Uranus, and Saturn. So his Sun is at 17 degrees of Scorpio, Saturn is at 13 degrees retrograde of Taurus, and Uranus is at 13 degrees of Aquarius. So with this T-square, this is a combination of the sky that's going to essentially cause a lot of tension for the native in those areas, and the release point is the opposite of that kind of apex of the T-square, which in this example is Leo. So the release point is kind of pushing and pointing to say, hey, go to Leo, and it'll kind of balance out these tensions. So this Sun, Saturn, Uranus, this once again shows me the energy of him being thrust into something. Sun, Uranus is very sudden shifts. Uranus in general is very sudden shifts, but it has a higher plan. Uranus always has a higher plan. You might not see it, but it always has a higher plan. And it always does and releases the tension for the native in a very sudden way. So just with Sun, Uranus alone, we're gonna break this down. I'm not just gonna go into some more advanced aspects, but so Sun, Uranus alone is a life of sudden changes. Sudden changes in the relationship with the self, with the ego, fracturing of the mind in a very genius way. swift changes in the expression of the self. So Sun-Uranus square is an energy that will shock the native, and they'll have moments where they'll have really, really shocking experiences that will repivot them and put them in an entirely different situation. And it may really shock the native, but eventually the native, because once again, I spoke about this in the Venus-Neptune part, but when you have a personal planet in relation to, or in connection to an outer planet, generational planet, it means that you become an embodiment of that generation. And the Sun-Uranus square is an energy of really embodying that need to be different, need to stand out, need to be seen as different, right? Within the entire collection of society. And I know that's very difficult nowadays because everyone's trying to be everyone, and that's a very difficult energy to deal with. But the Sun-Uranus is, there's a very volatile life. I don't think it's something that, because Uranus you can never predict. You can't. Uranus just causes sudden drastic changes to the native. And I think with that being in connection with Saturn and Taurus, the sign of self-value, self-worth, self-esteem, and morals, I'm pretty sure he got thrust into this. It took off in a way he wasn't expecting. Or maybe he did expect it, because I mean he has Mars Capricorn. So maybe he just did expect it. And it took off in a way he may have not expected, or he may not have felt that he was willing or able or deserving of. Because Saturn and Taurus is very, very worried about deserving something and deserving what they've received and what they've gotten in life. And this T-square is almost like it was fated for him to be where he is, be on TV, be doing these different things for the collective. But it's almost like internally, I think he has this doubt that he's not worthy of that, or it won't matter in the long term, or something along that level. And it's almost like it's almost like It's almost like he feels like he has to outdo himself to maintain that level of like sort of a connection, that level of influence, that level of like influence over the collective, that level of just fame, right? And the thing is with fame and everything like that, once you have it, you can't unhave it. You know what I mean? Once you're given that spotlight in that way, you can't be having it taken back from you. And I think that's what he's feeling, or he's felt, at least on some level, where there might be people that have told him, or he might feel that way, that he doesn't deserve what he's gotten. But I really think he does, because Uranus, and this is coming from me who's extremely Uranian, Uranus wants you to be where you are, and Uranus will get you there in the quickest way possible. So there's a reason why he's doing what he's doing. There's a higher purpose for everything in the universe, but especially in this chart, what he's doing. And because of this T-square, and with the sun being involved and all this stuff, yeah, this man has something with the father that was a little bit difficult. I'm not exactly sure on all the intricacies of that, but we'll see in that way. And that's more, like I said, that's more of a private thing that I don't really go into these charts, because I don't have his birth time, so I can't get all that information. And two, it's just a privacy thing. I don't feel like it's morally right or ethically right for me to do that. Michael, if you do happen to somehow find this video and you want a reading and you want some information or want to clarify some stuff, love that. But yeah, so anyway, as it relates to the T-square, there's a Sun-Saturn opposition and the Uranus at 13, and then the opposite point of that is Leo, which means that's where he needs to go to really be his own individual, and to really release this tension that he's feeling from kind of like not being enough versus being thrust into this so quickly in that way. So that's the Sun, Saturn, Uranus T-square. I'm going to talk about the North Node in Leo, South Node in Aquarius next, because that's a really big thing. And that's kind of one of the last things I want to talk about before I go into this predictive work. But yeah, that's at least the T-square there. That is pretty interesting for him. So let's move on to the North Node in Leo and South Node in Aquarius. All right, so we have his North Node in Leo and his South Node in Aquarius. All right, so this is his chart, like, just points to him being in the spotlight and being famous and being in that sort of stuff. Like a lot, actually, because the North Node is where you need to go to fulfill your purpose, right? That's what everyone says in the astrology community. It's a nodal axis that is constantly triggered. You're constantly pulled back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it's almost like until the age of 30, you're kind of pulled slowly into your North Node, but you're more comfortable in your South Node for the most part, depending on the chart. But for the most part, and especially in this one, you're more prone to the South Node. But the North Node, after, about the age of 30, Saturn return, you start moving towards this nodal axis of really fulfilling that North Node, which is in Leo. So it's funny because his South Node's in Aquarius, North Node's in Leo. The South Node in Aquarius is all about letting the group tell you who you are. Letting the collective tell you who you are, what you want, your values, all those sorts of things. And the South Node being there means that he's comfortable in groups. He's comfortable in the crowd. He's comfortable sort of in the collective of things, right? But it's the stepping out and creating something that is his own, that isn't just something that is, kind of a collective, like, sort of project, but something that is his own is what's really going to fulfill him. And that's, I think, the North Node Leo is very much doing his own music, not letting someone else create his music, but him doing his own music, and not allowing any collaborations, not allowing any of that stuff. I mean, that can help, right? It can definitely help to have great friends and great connections in that way. But the North Node in Leo is like, hey, create on you, show the world what you can do as an individual, which, I mean, yes, Jupiter and Aries, Mars and Capricorn, so you can do a lot of crap. You can do a lot of stuff in this life. But it's a matter of just going and creating singularly as an individual, creating in that way, being artistic, and moving into the direction of their North Node. And it's interesting because what I remembered was there was an interview he did, I think on Good Morning America, I want to say, where he had kind of sang his song on Good Morning America through like Zoom or something of that sort. And it was interesting because just remembering the feeling that I got watching that was him stepping into his North Node, looking back on it. But I remember the feeling when I watched it was that it was almost like he was uncomfortable doing that and standing in that way. And it's interesting because that is his North Node. He is supposed to do something like that. And it's funny because I think he's doing that not sooner, I don't say sooner than he should, because that's not correct, because he's doing exactly what he's supposed to. But it's almost like he went into his North Node of North Node in Leo, of listening to himself and doing it in that way, and then it didn't feel right to him, or it wasn't received in the same way as he would have expected, or something, or even it's more of an internal thing, honestly. I feel like it's more of an internal, like, self-worth thing. And it was like he went out there in the North Node, and then he didn't feel good enough for whatever reason, right? He didn't feel like it was good enough. He felt like it was awkward, whatever it may be, right? Because I'm obviously, like, if I sang on Good Morning America, I would be like, I would just feel, I don't know, if I sang on Good Morning America at that age, just at all, I would just feel like I would be uncomfortable personally. And that's just being just any human, I think, singing on, and that's brave. It's brave to do that. It's brave to go on Good Morning America and do that. I'm not faulting that at all. But it's interesting because it felt like he went into his North Node in Leo, and then for whatever reason, some energy within himself, some self-doubt, some sort of feeling that he caught up with the moon Pluto that he has, you know, that emotional awareness of undercurrents, it like threw him back into his South Node in Aquarius. So it's interesting because it feels like that's where he's being pulled back to, which is, you know, connecting to groups, connecting to the collective, and letting the collective decide for you who you are. And so this energy too is, if he does continue down the path of music, which I'm 100% sure he will, it's almost like he may put out sounds or songs that he knows is going to be liked by the community or liked by the collective, and is more apprehensive to put out songs that are strictly his own and strictly done by him. Or even then too, like South Node in Aquarius people can be so caught up in the likes. I mean, it's very common to be caught up in likes and be caught up in, like, you know, views and likes and all that stuff on social media, but I think for this combination, it's almost like he would realize what songs and what videos and what concepts are getting views and getting attention from the collective, and, you know, getting validation from in that way, or, you know, just being seen and being appreciated by the collective. And he's going to do more of that. He's going to do more of that, which is totally understandable. I mean, that's very smart business food, Mr. Mars and Capricorn, very smart. However, it's not that he's supposed to do all the time, and he might not realize that for quite some time, but he's supposed to go and do things that fulfill his heart, fulfill his joy. I'm not saying he's not already doing that, because he's definitely much further ahead of the game than anyone in my generation was when we had, you know, our Saturn squares and stuff. But it's almost like he has to go and create for his own creation's sake. Come on. Hold on. As I was saying, he needs to create for creation's sake. He needs to just create and create and create, and eventually he will share that with the collective and share himself with the collective. Share himself and just happen to have it be a collective thing. I think there is more of a private life that he is not entirely sharing. And there might be at some point, if there hasn't been already, because I'm not in his private life, I have no clue, but there might have been some sort of him sharing too much of his personal private life of his friends with social media or with the collective. Because there's some sort of privacy that is needed for him, and I think having that nodal axis and having a Scorpio, he has this like fixed energy going on that is really saying he might be a little bit too, he might go too into his Leo North Node to compensate for the Aquarius South Node. And it's almost like, because Aquarius and Leo is the axis of the king and the people, and the South Node is the people, Leo is the king, obviously we know this. And so with the North Node being there, it's like he wants to be the king. He doesn't want to be part of the crowd all the time, or he's more comfortable being part of the crowd, or more comfortable doing something for people, for the collective, for humanity. So it's like he needs to move in this direction of Leo, of being the leader in all that sense. And I do believe he's, like I said, much further along than I ever was. And I think it's a very powerful energy that he has in that way, but moving towards a sense of creativity and, like I said, creation for creation's sake. So that is the North Node, South Node axis. We're going to just move on to the last final part of his chart reading, which is the Saturn in Taurus. And then after that, we're going to do the predictive part. So, okay, so we're going to talk about a Saturn in Taurus. Not as long as I just talked about everything else in this video, but Saturn in Taurus is an energy of self-worth, self-esteem, self-value, and a delay in that attainment of that, or the belief of the attainment of that. Saturn in Taurus people have a pretty pivotal experience with money throughout the course of their life. And they get more of it progressively as they get older, as they learn to manage it, as they learn to manage their finances. They are given more. This is the people that have a lot of antiques, or they are given a pretty crappy car at, you know, teenage years, and they are required to pretty much drive that car into the ground until it gives out, and then they will be given a new car. They have to appreciate the little things that they're given to be given more, and it's a delay in that ability. And it's almost like with Venus, with Saturn and Taurus, or Saturn in relation to Venus, it's like such a, this isn't enough for me, this isn't enough for my physical needs, right? If they grew up on eating, you know, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right, which is pretty common for people that have Saturn and Taurus, or even just, you know, just American culture in general, just any culture really, anything, you know, lower middle class or middle class even, there's an imprint of some sort of value where it's like, oh, I eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and then they reach a level of financial security and later in their life, and they're like, oh, I don't want peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, I want, you know, steak, I want lobster, I want, you know, the highest of the highest quality food. Or they have this energy of wanting something that is way outside of their value, just to prove to themselves that they're worth that, right? I have a family member who has Saturn and Taurus, and I remember very vividly that when she was younger, she wanted to like literally purchase an island. And I was like, how? You know, so, but that is Saturn and Taurus. It's like they want that. They attain that level of value and of self-worth and money. They will get that. Saturn and Taurus, you will get that, I promise you. Especially if you have Saturn and Taurus and you listen to this, I promise you, you will get to that point. Might not take, it'll take quite a while because Saturn is Saturn and it delays things, but I promise you, you will get there. So as relates to that, it is, like I said, a delay in his ability, either not his ability to make money, but his sort of delay in his belief in his own ability to make money. And the thing is too, with this Saturn Uranus Sun T-square that I just spoke about too, I think what it is there's money that was given to him very, very quickly with all of this, you know, this fame, this kind of shoot up to fame, and that he's received, and it was given to him very, very quickly, and it may have been kind of saved away in some sort of savings account, or someone may be managing his finances besides him, and he's kind of slowly going to need to learn how to manage sorts of amounts of money and learn how to do that, because that's what Saturn and Taurus is. But I do feel very strongly that he was given quite a lot of money through this, obviously, but that management of that is kind of like dripped to him by some sort of authority, whether it is legally, right, or like you don't get the money until after the season is done, whatever that sort of contract, or if it is actually someone outside of him, whether it's family or whatever it may be, that won't allow him to access all those funds, or only access them in like kind of like an allowance, essentially. That's kind of like what I'm feeling is like an allowance of this sort of finances. And Saturn and Taurus is going to have a lot of lessons around finances, around financial literacy, and around budgeting and those sorts of things, and being able to appreciate and be grateful for the things that you have physically, and the things that you're given and the things that you've received, and really know where you came from, and what values you have that have been brought up to you and you've been given, and a lot of family heritage too. A really big need to get into family heritage with Saturn and Taurus, and not just attain money to attain money, but also think of their relationship to money. Saturn and Taurus people, y'all need to just think about money and really understand your relationship to it, and understand why you believe the way you believe about money, and what you think money can provide for you, what you think money can do. Because Saturn and Taurus, y'all have a big lesson around that, and around what money or self-worth, self-value can mean. Thing is with this too, Saturn, Taurus, y'all people, and this is Saturn, Venus too, like if you were to have a Saturn, Venus aspect, it'd be a very similar thing, but Saturn, Taurus needs to be clear on what they want. not just in relation to money, not just in relation to, you know, career attainment, but in relation to relationships, and like be clear on boundaries. Like this is his whole chart is like, be clear on boundaries, emotionally express yourself, you know, be very, very willing to look at yourself and humble yourself too, because you never know where you can go. And the thing is too, I think with his Uranus-Saturn square, and this whole thing that happened, I think he has a fear of losing that structure that he's built. And I don't think it'll happen. I mean, Uranus is involved, so I don't know. I mean, a lot of that we'll get into that with the predictive part in a second, but I don't think it'll happen because it's Saturn. So Saturn typically stabilizes it once you keep it and once you reach it. But I think, like I said, it is all dependent on his financial situation and what he's allowed to do with his money right now, honestly, because that's what it really feels like, is there's some sort of allowance situation going on. But anyway, that's Saturn and Taurus as it relates to Michael Cimino. Let's do like a final little overview, and then I will move on to the predictive part. So as for the final overview, Michael Cimino is a very, very artistic man. Very artistic, very quickly attained this level of fame, of connection, of notoriety, right? And he will more than likely be there for quite some time. He's going to be a face of the generation with all these generational connections that he has. And I think he has a lot of healing to bring to us as well as to himself. Like I said, similar to the Tori Kelly video, the Moon Chiron energy is saying, you know, he's just trying to heal his emotional wounds and go through it, and we're just along for the journey. And the fact that we are all here watching him on screen, right, or whatever it may be that you've found him or even found me, right, we're all here healing together. And the more healing you work on yourself, the more you're able to bring that out in other people. And he's simply doing that, especially Moon Pluto. He's doing that too. So it's a lot of healing in him on the emotional sense. But honestly, looking at this chart, like, he's done so much. He's already done so much, and I have a very strong feeling that he is going to be around for quite some time. But it's just, honestly, for him, it's just really being real, I think, is what he needs to do. If I were to be talking to him right now, I would say, just be real, be honest, and look at the reality of things, or try to, right? Everything is creative, and everything can be creative, and everything can be artistic, and that has its merit, and that has its place. But as it relates to, you know, reality and boundaries are extremely important. And understanding physical boundaries is what your biggest lesson is. But the boundaries also relate to every other area of life, right? There's mental boundaries, there's financial boundaries, everything. Boundary work is so important and so crucial. And if you don't do that, people are going to take advantage of that. People are going to take advantage of your kind nature. But you have a lot of power. You have a lot of power, you have a lot of strength. So don't ever give that away to anyone. Because Sun, Scorpio, and Moon, Pluto, we can definitely do that. So don't allow other authorities to have a power of control over you, or even let them make you feel like you're less worthy than they are, or less worthy than you feel like everyone thinks you are. Because you are worthy in your own right, and that is something that no one can take away from you, no matter how much money they take away from you, no matter how much of anything they take away from you. You are worthy exactly as you are, no matter where you are in your life. Whether you're at the top of your career, bottom of your career, side to side, whatever, you are worthy. And yeah, and you're gonna be going through some crazy transits pretty soon. So I'm gonna go to that next, and then we'll talk about that there. So thank you for watching this. If you guys are interested in the predictive part, I'm gonna go to that next. If you guys are interested in any of his socials and everything, that's all down below, as well as my socials. And if you guys want to book anything with me or have any interest in connecting with me, feel free to do that. So love you. Let's move on to the predictive portion. All right, so this is the predictive portion for Mr. Michael Cimino. So this is part of the chart reading that I always love to do for these celebrities and people in the public eye, because it's interesting to see what happens on their end. So the ones that I noted were mainly Saturn, right? The Saturn square, which he's going to be approaching pretty soon. I don't know the exact date of it. I have an estimate of when it'll happen, but essentially Saturn is currently, at the time of recording this, I believe it's at like 7 degrees or so, but it is going to be moving into, it's already stationed direct at the time of recording this, but it's going to move into a square with his own Saturn, which is, Saturn squares are extremely pivotal. Saturn in general is extremely pivotal. And so Saturn, his own natal Saturn, is at 13 degrees of Taurus, and then his own natal Uranus is at 13 degrees of Aquarius. So currently, there's a lot of stuff going on as it relates to that square, because I don't know if you're aware in the astrological community or just in general for 2021, astrologically, the biggest things going on are the Saturn-Uranus square. Saturn is currently in Aquarius, Uranus is currently in Taurus. And most of the Gen Z generation, or the people that have Saturn and Taurus, also have Uranus and Aquarius. So they're dealing with this Saturn-Uranus square on the reverse for them. So Saturn squaring Saturn is going to be a time for these karmic lessons are going to be brought to his attention. The karmic lessons in relation to self-worth, the karmic lessons in relation to self-value, money, those sorts of things are going to be really honestly brought to the forefront for him to deal with. And the Saturn square is going to position him and focus him into what is his Saturn return is going to be. Because Saturn is wanting to have a sense of stability. Saturn's wanting to teach you something. Saturn wants you to learn, you know, what you're here to learn. And if you haven't gone through your Saturn return yet, which Michael has not, you're not going to really feel crystallized and finished and grown, you know, until you're at that point. And when that happens, you're going to feel it. And I know it sounds weird to say that on, you know, at all. But when you have a Saturn square, you're going to deal with it. And not to bring up another celebrity, just to reference every celebrity in my videos, but James Charles, during his Saturn square, had the same, not the same issue, but a, you know, sort of scandal and a sort of repositioning of his finances and a loss of all of his, like, not all of his, but a lot of his brand deals and those sorts of things. So Saturn square Saturn brings up those lessons. So that's what happened during his Saturn square. So I can anticipate something like that similarly happening to the Saturn and Taurus individuals, and Michael being one of them. So as the exact date of his Saturn square, it looks to be that it's right around January of 2022. So in about a couple months or so, he's going to have his exact Saturn square. And it looks like Saturn may, I know Saturn does go retrograde. I don't believe it goes back to the point of 13 degrees, but it looks like as it relates to his Saturn, this will be the last hit of his Saturn square, because there won't be something hitting that for quite some time. But there will, yeah, there's definitely, it's not going to hit it again. So January will be his final hit of his Saturn square. So there was something that kind of peaked in his right around May, June, that is going to be revisited in January. Well, probably before then, but probably in January too. It's going to be really, really hit. So there's that there. That's the Saturn square. We also have Uranus conjuncting his Saturn as well. That's not going to happen. Well, actually, it might have already happened at this point, but it hasn't hit it as its exact hit yet. So it looks like it actually is happening almost exactly at the time of recording this. So that's beautiful. So I hope you're okay if you're watching this. Yeah, so probably honestly right around literally almost exactly the time of recording this is pretty much right when his Uranus is on top of his Saturn. So that is very freaky to think about that. But anywho, so that is a big transit. So that's going to shake up his stability, shake up his self-worth. So there's something going on, a precursor to the Saturn square that's going on currently at the time of recording this, which is crazy to think about. Excuse me, crazy to think about that. But yeah, so yeah, it's just really, really interesting to think about that. I don't really know what's going on, because I typically make these predictive videos for things in the future, but I'm doing something for right now, which is really weird. Anywho, so there's that. And then he also has Saturn squaring his sun. So that won't happen for a little bit. Probably not until, I want to say, like, probably his birthday next year. No, not next year, I'm sorry. It looks like it's going to be right around, oh yeah, January 2022 is going to be a doozy for this man. Just because Saturn is going to hit his square, and then shortly thereafter, about a month after, it's going to hit his sun. So yeah, so January, February next year is going to be an interesting time for him. I don't know what is going to happen, but it's going to be interesting. Yeah, I don't really know exactly, but all of 2022 is going to be kind of hitting him pretty prominently, pretty hard. So I'd be interested to see where that goes. That's interesting. So his Saturn is going to square his sun, like I said. So Saturn's going to be in Aquarius, squaring his sun in Scorpio. That is there's something going on with him, with a need for him to be an authority, be a bigger authority, and be a bigger advocate for himself, advocate for the collective. I have a feeling, this is an interesting feeling, but I have a feeling something's going to happen that's going to push him to want to use his finances for more humanitarian pursuits, or more, beneficial things for the collective. And I have a feeling that there's gonna be some push for him to get access to more of his funds, if that is what's being held from him. I don't know if it is, like I said, but I have a feeling there's gonna be some sort of access to his funds being pushed by the collective, or the collective need, where he's gonna need to kind of be more of an advocate, and be more of a donor, and more of a using of his finances to help the collective in that way. But also too, that Saturn squaring the sun is it's a doozy, where it makes, there's some difficulty with the collective wants, and what the collective wants from him, versus what he's able to do. And he's going to feel pressure from the collective to act in a certain direction, whether to keep him in, in alignment with what the collective wants, and giving his power away to groups in that sense. So that's an interesting energy to think about. I guess I don't know what's going to happen on that with the Saturn square the sun, because the Saturn is also obviously going to be initiating this T-square too. So it's a time of him really. He's going to be going through it. Let's just put it that way. He's going to be going through it, but not in a sense that is going to like destroy him or anything like that. It's going to test him. And with the Uranus involved, it's hard to predict what that could even be. It really is. Obviously, I'd have to look way deeper into this and do way more predictive work to really figure out much more of it. And obviously, I would need a birth time to like understand more of his chart, do like a full actual reading. But yeah, he has that interesting stuff going on. And then also, he has the node switching into Scorpio, or the south node switching to Scorpio rather, right around, yeah, he has this boy has an interesting time coming up. So, right, yeah, I don't know, boy, something is going around. January, February for this man is crazy, because, yeah, so it looks like Saturn hits he has a Saturn square around mid-January, and then late January, like literally, like January 24th or so, he has the south node on his Mercury. So that's going to be letting go of his the power there's like this like power struggle within his mind, or within the people he's associated with, where he lets them dictate what he's doing, or his finances, or what he says, right? There is this like energy of potentially going against some sort of authority collectively, but using your voice in a more spiritual bend, because the South Node over the Mercury is going to put more of a spiritual approach to his communication. So there might be some sort of muting of him, or a need for him to go within more deeply to be able to speak more clearly on his beliefs. I honestly think what's going to happen is it's going to push him into his Sagittarius stuff that I was talking about, which I don't really feel like he really embodies as much, mainly because it's Pluto, right? There's Pluto there, so it likes to stay hidden. But I think it's going to be brought up pretty prominently pretty soon with that South Node on the Mercury. It's going to be, there's some stuff coming on for him pretty soon. So end of January 24th or so, he has this South Node on the Mercury, and then it looks like right around February, around Valentine's Day, it looks like. Around Valentine's Day, he has Saturn squaring his Sun. So whatever happens at his Saturn square is going to initiate all of these things, because it's his Saturn square, then it's his South Node Mercury, then it's his Saturn square his Sun, and that's just using Saturn. And Saturn wants you to structure that stuff, be an authority in that way. So he's going to have to be an authority in the sense of the collective, realize that he's valuable in his own right as well as to the collective, and then also some sort of authority over like whatever power play he's dealing with, whatever powerful individual or individuals he's dealing with needs to be addressed, because there's an energy of him going against some sort of groupthink, or standing up for that, or standing up for what he knows is worthy, standing up against some sort of, like I said, authority or authorities that may be muting him in that way, or not allowing him to express himself in the fullest of his potential. Because like I said, I really just feel like he's going to move into this Moon, Pluto, Chiron, Mercury thing, this whole Sag thing that he got going on, because everything else is kind of like playing out pretty well, but the Moon, Pluto, Chiron, Mercury is like just kind of chilling. And also, to added side note, in a couple weeks from the time I'm recording this video, in about November 19th or so, November 16th, there is an eclipse on his Chiron, that whole stellium up there. So might expect something around that time, personally. So right around his birthday, a little bit after his birthday, something will pop off, I'm pretty sure. But that's for everybody. The eclipses are also extremely volatile and extremely unpredictable, so there might be something going on, but there's like something there. So we'll see where that goes, honestly. And it's all predictive, this is all for entertainment purposes. It's just, just reading at the charts, just seeing what can come of it, honestly. And obviously, like I said, I don't know his entire birth chart. If I knew his birth chart and knew like his actual birth time, I would be able to help so much more. But I don't. So I just gotta let it settle and see where the dust settles. But this predictive work is going to be something that it's a doozy for him, because he's going to be pushed in a way that he hasn't been pushed before, and it's going to prep him for his Saturn return, which won't be for like 7 years, but so I look forward to seeing what happens, following him and seeing what's going on. So yeah, that's my predictive reading for Mr. Michael Cimino. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I love doing these things. I love doing predictive work. I love doing astrology readings for public figures, as well as just clients, friends, students, all those sorts of things. So yeah, and I have my whole playlist down below if you guys are interested in seeing what other astrology or what other astrological analyses I have done for different other celebrities, as well as all my other videos down there. I'll be making a lot more videos in the future, and they'll be on my channel, so I'll be doing a lot more come the new year, so just be aware of that. And yeah, I'm really excited about this. I think this was a great reading, and I'm really excited to see where this goes with him. I see a lot of potential for him, and I'm really excited. So once again, thank you for watching. I know this was a very long video. My videos typically are, which is why there's timestamps. Yeah, I appreciate you. And thank you for sharing this space with me virtually. And this is BRAMstrology, and you have now taken a step to becoming your rare, authentically mastered self using the language of the stars. I had to put that in there. Of course I did. All right, I love you guys. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.